Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zack and I've spent the day driving the 2026 Subaru Outback Wilderness. Up front is a 2.4 liter turbocharged flat 4 and down below is a CVT. Now I am super excited to be driving this Subaru Outback Wilderness for two reasons. First of all, I'm here in Napa Valley, California, soaking up the sun while back home in Chicago, everyone I know is freezing their tails off. But the second reason is the fact that the Subaru Outback is all new for 2026, but now the Wilderness is even newer, and so they've done a lot of updates for the vehicle, and I'm excited to share them with you here today. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 2.4 liter turbo under the hood. Well, I will put the horsepower up on the screen. I don't have it immediately in front of me. However, I do want to say that the Wilderness is only available with a 2.4 liter turbo. However, the Outback as a whole is available with a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated flat 4. So the more budget oriented Outbacks are going to have that engine, and let me tell you, the turbo is worth the upgrade. It is such a better engine in nearly every conceivable way. Now, reliability is going to be up in the air. Always adding more parts is going to add more complexity, but the 2.5 liter flat 4 in the base model is such a slouch that this is really, really good. Like I said, paired to it is a CVT. Nothing really changes there. And it does fine enough, can tow 3,500 pounds with it. And last but not least, of course, this does have Subaru's all-wheel drive system, the symmetrical all-wheel drive system, and it does have X mode. So X mode has two different levels. We have dirt and snow, and then deep snow and mud. Really, the difference there is that deep snow and mud will take off traction control so you can get that wheel speed up. But it has hill descent control integrated into it. It's their off-road mode, and it really, truly is fantastic. We spent a lot of time off-road in these vehicles, and it was just such a piece of cake, even through the mud, even through the ruts. How does it feel to drive the Subaru Outback Wilderness? Well, it actually is very good, even on road. So they added adaptive suspension for the Subaru Wilderness, and so it changes and adapts to the surface that you're driving on. So here on the road that I'm doing this part of the review on, it's soft and it's soaking up the bumps pretty well, but then when you get off-road, it starts to change and it modifies and it learns, and so it really has a nice, smooth driving experience, and we'll talk a lot about that towards the end of the video with the final thoughts. Visibility is good. Like I said, ride quality is good. Throttle response is great with the 2.4 turbo, so it actually is a pretty nice drive. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a completely digital gauge cluster. Now, the Outback Wilderness gets a specific background. This is the Desert Wilderness background for the screen. The standard Outbacks don't have this. Really, really like that touch. However, everything else functions the same as a standard Outback. On the steering wheel on the left, we do have our skip track source options for that gauge cluster screen, as well as our phone options and volume. And off to the right, we have our adaptive cruise and our X mode button. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent, our tailgate release, and gauge dimmer switch. And moving on to the door, we have two levels of memory seats, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. Moving into the center, we get our new infotainment display. This does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and I actually really, really like this system. I think it's easy to use, I think it's intuitive, and it's very straightforward for a first-time user. One thing I do want to note is that the Wilderness does get a standard front 180-degree camera. So you get a standard front camera with the Wilderness package. However, this actually has an option package that will add a 360 camera. That's why this has been bumped up to $50,000. So that is one of those added options. Not every Wilderness is going to have 360, but this particular one does. Down below that, we have two climate control vents and the hazard switch. And then we have our climate controls that are physical. They are no longer in the screen like they were in the previous generation. And Subaru told us this morning, Yes, we heard your notes, we heard your cries, we heard your critiques. We went back to physical buttons, and I hope that this continues throughout Subaru's product lineup. It is fantastic, and with that upgraded 360 camera, we also get ventilated seats along with the sunroof up above me. Then we do have a USB-C and USB-A input. We have a wireless charger down below, and then moving into the center console, we get the shifter off to the left, and we get 4 interesting buttons for our automatic start-stop on and off, our trail camera, a view button. Very, very nice to use this. Again, this has the 360 camera, but some wildernesses won't. Auto holding brake and our traction control off. We have the power parking brake, and off to the right, we have cup holders. So we'll do a big friggin' bottle test. It fails here. However, the Subaru engineers actually designed the door pockets specifically for bottles. They know their target demo. I know you have an REI membership card. You have a big bottle if you have a Subaru. So they put a bottle holder in the door card and made it carpet so it doesn't rattle around and make noise. Then we do get a 12-volt outlet and a center console with nothing in it. The seats are comfortable. For the first time, again, part of that upgrade package that this has, this does have actual Nappa leather. So you can now get Nappa leather here in the Subaru Outback Wilderness as opposed to just the more luxury trims. So very nice to see that. You can also get the Wilderness with the StarTex leather adjacent product, but this is the true leather, and of course that adds to the price tag as well, but it is a nice option. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, getting in the back of the Subaru Outback Wilderness, and once we are back here, we do have heated seats. Absolutely love to see that in the back here, but for 50 grand, I would hope you get it. You do get USB-C as well as USB-A. We do have the nice leather carrying on back here as well. And of course, we do have a center console with some cup holders. Knee room is pretty good, nothing to complain about. Headroom is good too. So I fit back here very, very well. Now, the Subaru Outback is a pretty big car, so I would expect to fit pretty well back here. But if you do have a family, if your children are somehow 5'11" or taller, they're gonna fit back here as well. So very, very nice to see. You don't get any crazy like extra Subaru Outback Wilderness-y things back here. You get the gold stitching, or yeah, stitching, I was gonna say piping, but yeah, gold stitching back here. That's a nice for the Outback Wilderness, but this is going to be pretty standard. But let's go hop into the very back because we actually have something interesting about the rear tailgate, and then we'll talk about the trunk. So before we talk about the actual trunk itself, we do have a completely different tailgate fascia for the back of the Wilderness. I will show a quick clip here of the standard Outback, and you can see the taillights are completely different. We have these weird sort of reverse lights, but the reason for that is that there's these plastic segments on the back of the tailgate, and they are meant for you to lean stuff on, whether that be a snowboard, your skis, a fishing pole, a kayak, whatever it is. When you're getting ready to go out and adventure, you can lean your stuff on this, and it has these little side handles so it doesn't lean too far over, and then you can get ready and go about your day. Very smart thinking from Subaru. We do have a button back here for the power operated tailgate, and once we are back here, we get this lovely Wilderness specific rear mat. Love to see that. And we can pull this up. It has a standard all-terrain spare tire. That is standard here on the Outback Wilderness. So very cool to see that. It's not a space saver or anything. This is the new privacy cover from Subaru. You can do a couple different things with it. You can put weight on it. You can obviously use it as a privacy cover and whatnot. This to me kind of feels a little bit cheap, a little bit cheaper than the outgoing Outback. However, you can fold this into a smaller container when you're not using it, so I guess that is a pretty big benefit. We do get a 12-volt outlet off to the bottom right, and that's pretty much it. We do have handles up here to lower the second row. You just pop it like that, grab this one as well, and right down like that. So very, very useful trunk space and tailgate from Subaru. Push the button once and it is power operated right back down. Now we have to talk about the looks, and I'll be honest, I think the front end is pretty gangly. It is not wonderful. I think overall the design of it is okay, but I think the Wilderness is actually the least attractive version of the new Outback. I think the standard base model actually looked better than this. However, to play devil's advocate, This is a very functional exterior. It has giant fog lights because they work well. It has so much plastic cladding because you're gonna take this down trails and you're gonna bump this up against rocks. And when you chip paint on metal, it rusts, it falls apart, it's no good. If you break or crack or scratch one of these giant plastic pieces, you can either replace it or it's not gonna cause any structural damage. Maybe it doesn't look great, but it's not gonna harm the car long term if you scrape up some of these plastic panels. So I understand it from a certain standpoint, but it's just not the most visually pleasing SUV I've ever seen. One more thing about the exterior is that the roof rack has been updated to an 800-pound static capacity, meaning when you're parked, you could put a tent on the top and camp up there as long as it's under 800 pounds. And then it has a 220-pound dynamic capacity, meaning driving at the highway speeds, you can have about 220 pounds up there because you have to think of lateral force as well as just down force. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the new Outback Wilderness? Well, if you're watching this on the day of its release, I also have a base model Outback coming out in a couple of hours. If this is days after the 22nd of January, 2026, that video's already out, and I'll link it at the end of this one. I like this a lot better than the base model. Obviously, for that price tag, you get a lot more car. And driving it off-road really has opened my eyes. This is a significantly capable vehicle. The Wilderness not only has knobbier tires than the standard Outback, but also it gets a ride height increase, about 8.5 to about 9.5 inches. That's some serious ground clearance for a daily driven vehicle. And that's my final point. This is something that is capable, but can be daily driven, and daily driven without much regret. Yes, you can daily drive your 96 Wrangler, but your fillings are gonna be rattled out of your head and your spine is gonna be contorted in many unpleasant ways. This isn't as capable as a Wrangler. You're not gonna really rock crawl in this. But the off-roading that we did, we three-wheeled it, we drove it through water crossings, we drove it through mud and ruts. We did more off-roading today than 99% of car buyers will ever need to go off-road. And so for those 364 other days of the year that you're not off-roading, this is still a pleasant place to be. It has a nice ride. It's quiet enough inside. It makes good power. But when you do want to hit the trail or get to that trailhead, you want to get up to that ski slope, you have to go through the snow, you have to go through the mud, you have to go through the gravel. Some ruts might have washed out part of the trail. You can do it with assurance here in the Outback Wilderness, but you don't have to forfeit the daily ability like a lot of other vehicles. I truly believe that 99% of Toyota 4Runner owners would actually be happy with a vehicle like this, with the stigma and the bro truckiness removed. This is really all that you would need. If you're driving through situations that this vehicle can't handle, you're probably in the Amazon rainforest. So as long as you're not there, this will be able to conquer the terrain that you're hoping it to, and it's still gonna be nice. It's still gonna have wireless Apple CarPlay and ventilated seats. And look, I'm driving at sunset. There's some mountains over here. I know I'm yelling, I talk loud in these videos. I can drive this like a normal dad on a Wednesday. It's actually Thursday, but you get my point. I can drive this like a normal human being and take this to soccer practice. I might get some looks because it is quite the hiking boot to look at, but that's okay. I'm gonna be able to get there in comfort. We're gonna be able to have a conversation in here, and I'm not gonna have to sacrifice that on-road ability like a lot of other vehicles. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Subaru for bringing me down here to Napa Valley to test out the new Subaru Wilderness. The whole Subaru team is absolutely wonderful. So thankful for them. And I get to enjoy some nice sunniness when back home it is rather frigid. So I appreciate Subaru, at least for the end of the day, getting me out of the cold. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.